Welcome to Live Better Longer. I'm your host, Bill Borton. My guest this week is Lynn Evans. Lynn is a CFP practitioner and the managing director of Women of Substance. Lynn focuses on what she views as the financial knowledge gap of baby boomer women, where traditional stereotypes are being re-examined and exciting new opportunities await on the horizon. She's the author of Power of the Purse, Fear-Free Finances for Baby Boomer Women. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks, Bill. It's good to be here. It's about
I've
time.
Been waiting a long time to have you on the show.
You have indeed.
Indeed. So I appreciate you coming down from upstate Pennsylvania to be on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Lynn, you've been doing this a long time. What do you see as some of the most significant challenges baby boomer women are facing these days as they try to live better longer?
Well, I think the primary one is what you just mentioned in the introduction. It's that financial literacy gap, that women are, generally baby boomer women, have been held accountable for virtually nothing as far as their finances all of their lives. Because when they started, if they had any money, which was a rare thing, because if we worked to make money to buy something. The concept of saving and investing was not anything in our world. Then all of a sudden, when we started working in a so-called career environment, and if we really followed a career, which most women only had two choices when I was young, you were either a teacher or a nurse. If either of those were the case, in neither situation did you have to worry about any kind of retirement plans, anything along those lines, because generally speaking, we would work for a certain number of years. The career path was pretty much fragmented. We worked for a couple years, we got married, we had babies, we stayed out of the workforce until the babies were a certain age, then we went back to the workforce. So part of that gap is that, unlike our male counterparts, that 10 to 15 year gap where we were at home either raising children or taking care of parents, we were not working. And we lost that, as you well know, the idea of compound interest. We lost all of that. So that by the time we got to the other end of the road and were ready to retire, we had significantly less in our retirement programs, however that's an inclusive term, than our male counterparts did.
You probably didn't make a lot of money either, because again, you didn't have a career path. Yeah,
right. So we had lesser wages compared to our male counterparts, and we had that gap where we were out either caretaking or raising children. So when we came back into the workforce, for a lot of us, we never really had that momentum that a lot of our male counterparts did. So therefore, we had to start all over again. So whatever years we would have had in seniority, had we worked, we lost. So we start all over again. So not only are we coming back into the workforce at a different time, but we're also losing our seniority and therefore our comparable wages. So the problem is we now get to the other end of the road, let's say we're 55, 60, and we're looking at retirement and saying, I can't do this. Where's the money going to come from?
Well, there's a big difference between having a successful husband who loves you
and
who is going to take care of you through your retirement years, as opposed to being widowed or divorced
or single.
Or single,
and never married, and that's a choice a lot of women made. So now they are in a position where the so-called feminist movement of the 70s has kind of worked not in their favor. Because now they're looking at their retirement years and saying, I don't have what I need to have to retire. And even though it was generous as far as what kind of, especially state teachers' pensions programs, they still don't have enough to continue. So what they realized at that point was they never had any literacy about money, and they never had to do it. No one ever taught them about it. It was just assumed that some male person in their lives would take over for whatever they needed to know about the money. So when they're widowed, divorced, or single, they now reach an age where this is an extremely crucial decision, and they don't know where to start.
Well, in the case of being widowed or divorced, the financial advisor, if there was one, was the husband's.
Correct.
And now he's no longer around, and so now what's the chance of you continuing to work with the former advisor?
Well, 70% of women who are widowed or divorced do not go to their husband's financial advisor.
Gee, wonder why.
Well, I can't imagine
Yeah.
why. No. So given that, now they're out there looking for, who do I talk to? Who do I go to? And that can be such a daunting task for so many women. They do the same thing. They basically bury their heads in the sand and say, I'm not dealing with it. I just don't know where to go. I don't have any point of reference. So to me, that is the biggest problem most baby boomer women face, is the fact that they have to now come to terms with their financial illiteracy. So my goal is to try to get them past that and give them some kind of basic understanding of, how does money work? Where do you start? What do you do? And my thought is, well, why don't we just say, let's start with some basic knowledge. Let's take some courses online. There are plenty of them. There are wonderful websites. I want to say one called Daily Worth. There's another, and I can't think of the name right now, but it was done by a woman who wrote a book about it as well. And LearnVest, it just came, LearnVest. And both of these sites have courses that you can enroll in at minimal amounts of money, I mean less than $100. And you learn the very basics of personal finance. And you move in a direction that says, we start here, you've learned this much, let's go to the next level and the next level. Now, it certainly does not prepare you to go out and do it by yourself.
Right.
But it gives you talking points. It gives you
need
language.
to know what questions to ask.
Yes. And speaking of questions,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. If you go to my website, there's a download you can get that says the 14 questions you want to ask a financial advisor.
Okay.
So it gives you really just like a cheat sheet to say, I'm going to go in and talk to this person and see if there's a fit. Let me ask these questions. And if the answers to the questions are the questions that you want, or the answers you wanted to hear, then this might be a good person for you. But again, you want to make sure you have at least 2 or 3 interviews like that. There's questions, and then there's a gut feeling. I can't possibly do anything about that gut feeling. It's either there or it's not there. So start with that, trust your feelings.
Yeah.
And then start asking those questions.
Well,
because
trusting
it
your
helps.
heart or trusting your gut, probably more reliable than that thing above your neck.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, but it's interesting to know the answers to some of those
sure.
questions.
So Lynn,
Yes.
you know, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and in your own way, you're kind of trying to change a generation of women and help them change the way they think and behave, just like
Right.
I'm trying to with Live Better Longer. My generation, same generation, the boomers, you know, get people to realize there's more than just accumulating money and then stopping working. So Live Better Longer is a very holistic approach. Well, you take a very holistic approach with what you're doing too, don't you?
Yes, I do. Gee, it's funny you asked that question.
Yes.
Really. My whole perspective on this is to say that when you get to retirement, it is not merely an economic event, which is the same thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
So I was listening to something that was fascinating to me today when I was driving here, that there are, I'm sure you must have heard the name of Edelman.
Yeah, Rick Edelman,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, Rick is coming out with a book, or just came out with a book, talking about the future of the next generation and how we, as advisors, have always talked to people about 65 is that arbitrary date when you retire, and you figure 30 years, 95. What he's saying is it's not that anymore, because it's probably going to be 120. We have to look at what we do in a completely different perspective.
Sure.
Because people are could possibly outlive their money if we talk about retirement only lasting for 20 or 30 years.
All the surveys say that baby boomers' #1 fear is outliving their money.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I fully expect to be around when I'm 100.
Oh, well, good.
Livingto100.com, last time I did it, says 101.
All right.
So you're going to have to put up with me a long time, Lynn. So,
Yeah, but there's nothing that says that I'll be there too.
well,
In any event, your point about the difference in how we approach this is that beyond the numbers, I think it's really important to take a look at what do you do with 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it's got to be very much more than just, I just quit working and it's all leisure. It's not just leisure.
No.
We have to make up more than that.
Well, now is the opportunity for you to do something you want to do,
Yeah.
as opposed to what you felt or you really had to do.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Sure. So you don't retire and stop. You go from one thing to something else, and there's nothing that says that's all you ever do either.
Right.
But again, you have to be able to fund all this.
Yes.
So this is why you have been spending so much of your time and effort on things like writing The Power of the Purse.
Yes.
And creating Women of Substance.
Right. So Power of the Purse was really something that came out of a conversation I had with a coach who said to me, why don't you write a book? And I looked at her like, are you serious?
Yeah.
What do I have to write a book about?
And when do I have time to do it?
Well, yeah, that was the other obvious question. But then what she said to me is, you've been working with women for over 30 some years. What I want you to do is start with, put down 12 stories of women that you've worked with, just not necessarily with any focus. What were their stories? What are the things you remember about them? What brought them to you? What was the issue? So I did that. And what I found was, even though some overlapped, at least I was looking at about 5 to 6 chapters of a book on the theme of what brought those women to me in the first place. So once I started doing that and started developing how many pages, 8 to 10 pages, or traditionally a chapter, you got a beginning and you got an end. One of the most important things I wanted to do was make sure that the women who were reading this were getting something out of it. And it wasn't so academic that they put it down in 10 minutes. So every single chapter starts with a story of a woman who actually went through whatever the topic is. And if I had another one, I would end that chapter with another story. And some very simple action steps that each woman could take to get themselves a little further along on this knowledge gap and say, I learned something today. So that's kind of how that developed. Then Women of Substance, I sold the financial planning business that I had had for more than 35 years. And I carved out about 10 to 15 women that I really enjoyed working with, who had gone way beyond just being clients. They were friends. I was very much part of their lives. So I said, let us take those women and we'll create a new registered investment advisory firm. And I called it Women of Substance, which is the same name I chose for the publishing company of the book. So it just kind of tied it all in together there. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Very creative, creativity in action. So Women of Substance then is, in your way of thinking or viewing it, a way of creating an extension of yourself by kind of creating a template or a platform for other advisors, primarily all women, who could be around the corner or across the country. And so when women read your blog, listen to your podcast, watch you on Live Better Longer, and want to talk to you, maybe talking to you leads them to someone else who's one of the other women of substance.
Yes. So that actually came out of the podcast that I had decided to do 2 years ago. I now have about 65 episodes for the podcast. And as a result of that, women would call and say, I want to work with you. Well, if they were in Topeka, Kansas, that was a little hard for me to do. Even though I could, with all the technology today, I still felt that that one-on-one was really important. So what I've developed now is an opportunity for women all around the country to be able to get in touch with me and say, okay, I want to work with somebody. How do I do it?
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that when we come back after a break for a word from our sponsor, Bill Borton, with more Live Better Longer in a moment.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales. Build attendance for an event.
Help people find their way. Fast Signs designed new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at fastsigns.com.
I'm Casey Price, host of a brand new show on RVN TV called Justice for All. Tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. as some of South Jersey's amazing attorneys share their stories and important legal information that could affect you and the people you love. Remember, that's in Justice for All, every Tuesday at 1 p.m., only on RVN TV.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand? Do your hobbies require the need for more space? If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer. A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing. General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want. You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back to Live Better Longer. I'm Bill Borton here with Lynn Evans. Lynn, before the break, you mentioned that you started doing podcasts about 2 years ago. Tell me more about that.
The podcast is definitely something that I really love doing. It's a lot of fun. It's actually giving me an opportunity to get to know some women around the world, literally, that I would never have had an opportunity to meet personally, just simply because of logistics. So I have now about 65 episodes that are produced. There's a couple more that are in the works, so to speak, that have to get through production and then be released. But what I've found that initially when I started to do this, I saw it primarily as an opportunity for those women who were my guests to become clients. And the more I looked at that model of it, I just said, that doesn't make any sense. Because I put myself on the other side of that and said, if I were given an opportunity to do an interview with somebody that would be broadcast to the world in general, and then that person came back to me and said, oh, by the way, I would like to do business with you, it would feel uncomfortable to me. Just to get, it goes against my grain. Not migraine, but migraines.
Sounds like a real headache to me.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay, so I said, I think I have to do this a little differently. So what I started doing was looking at women who were authors or women who were writers for publications of some sort, newspapers, they don't even barely exist anymore, but online blogs, that kind of thing. Who were women that were either women who've been through some of those issues that I had talked about in the book and came through quite nicely, thank you, or women who were really some specialists, maybe in a very general sense of things that were important to women of baby boomer age, and then some that were subspecialists. So to give you an example, I found when I was reading through AARP magazine, there were certain women who were listed as authors of some of these articles. So I've been working with a group of marketing assistants, and I said, how about if you approach this person and see if they would be interested in doing this? They actually, all of them said yes. They thought it was a wonderful idea. And one of the women actually did a series of 3. So they were all specialists in some things that women wanted to know about, like caretaking, like Medicare, like Social Security, when's the right time to take it, like what they call aging in place, and then people who had second careers, or women who had gone through some, what people would consider to be horrendous divorces, or widowed at an early age, and then how did they get through that, how did they survive? So those podcasts were just complete in and of themselves. And that's the way I've been moving it forward, that's the woman I'm looking for to be on the show. So I would also say, if anyone out there is listening, if you have been through something like this and you would like to be on the podcast, please get a hold of me. We'll talk about that later. But then the other point of the podcast was that it gives women another kind of a backdoor way to learn about personal finance without it being right in their faces.
Sure, and it doesn't take long to be exposed to you through your podcasts, your blogs, and interviews like this to realize that you're somebody they probably should talk to.
Well, I would hope so.
Well, I would too.
I would hope that's
So,
the case.
so when somebody does reach out to you,
Yes.
what's that look like? What can they expect when they contact you?
Well, first of all, what I'd like them to do is go through the website. So it would be Lynn S is my middle initial, S is in Sam, lynnsevans.com. There's a contact page there where they can fill out contact information and a little area where they can say, what do you need? What is it I can help you with?
Right.
Then either I will get back to them directly or one of my marketing people will get back and help them pick a time on a calendar that's online, a 15 or 20 minute time frame, just to talk to me for no cost. I just want to see if there's something I can do to help them.
Right.
If there is something I can do to help them, then I most probably would suggest that they get connected to someone that I've already vetted. I've already been through the process of knowing women advisors for women clients and how do they function. Are they people that sell a lot of products? If that's the case, I don't really want to send them to anybody, but I would like them to be somebody who really starts from the place of understanding what does this woman want and how can I help her.
Well, that reminds me to tell our viewers that you are a fee-only registered investment advisor.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
technically speaking, you're the only type of financial professional that can call yourself an advisor.
Well, technically you're right,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who do.
Yeah, we know. We know
Yes,
that.
so, yes.
you don't sell anything other than your counsel to
Right.
people,
Right.
and you do manage money.
We do manage money, and we manage the money in line with whatever that objective was that this woman said she needs to have. So in other words, I'm not looking for performance. I don't want to come back and say, hey, this last quarter we got you 15% return.
Yeah, I beat the S&P.
Yeah, well, who cares? I mean, that's way too much risk probably for this woman. But that's not how I judge my value to this woman on whether I beat the S&P 500 index. I want to judge my value to her based on how much I helped her achieve the goal. So if, let's say, the goal was to have X amount of dollars in 5 years, if we're moving towards that every year and it's a positive number, I think that's great value. It doesn't have to be 50%, it can be 5%, but we're getting there, we're moving towards the goal.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, you reach a certain point in your life where you're going to be shifting from earned income to no longer accumulation, but to decumulation, or turning that nest egg into retirement income,
Exactly.
where it doesn't really matter how your assets are allocated anymore or what the rate of return is. It's more the return of your investment at that point.
Yes.
And how you can maximize your retirement income so you can enjoy those later years that may be many more plentiful than you realized.
Yes, as we were talking before.
Yes.
People are still, most of the people in our age group are still believing when they do retirement calculations that people will normally live to 90 or 95. We're now learning with all of the technology and the advances in medicine and whatever, 100 is not unrealistic anymore.
That's the fastest growing demographic.
Exactly. So we have to rethink all that.
Yeah, and you may find that your body may get to 100, but if your mind doesn't get there too, and I know you have some experience with this, then that creates a whole nother set of challenges.
Right.
So again, this is why Live Better Longer for me is body, mind, spirit, soul, finances, risk management. It's a holistic, all-inclusive type
It
of
is.
proposition.
Yeah.
I know you take the same view, which is one reason why
I
we
do.
get along so well.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So in the time we have left,
Yeah.
and again, you've told people that they can reach you at lynnsevans.com.
Right.
Can they get the power of the purse there?
Yeah, they can. There is a link there, and also you don't even have to go there. You can go right to Amazon.com.
Amazon, okay, that's great. Can you get it as an ebook if
Yes,
you want
you
it?
can.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that anybody who is interested, whether you're a woman or a man, read that. But definitely, if you're a boomer woman, absolutely, don't delay.
Yes.
So what
Thank
else
you.
do you want us to know in the last few minutes?
I just think that I'm just really heartened by the fact that so many women are actually stepping up to the table here on this and saying, I do understand. I have had so many women come to me with what we call gray divorce, women who've been married more than 30 years and all of a sudden find themselves in the middle of a divorce, or they initiate it. They say, I'm looking at the next 30, as we've talked about. I don't want to sit across from the breakfast table with this guy, all right? So let's just break it off now. All right, so those women are saying, hey, I need to do something about this, and I got to get smart, and I got to get smart fast.
Yeah, you need to get a good lawyer, too.
That too, that too. So I've been working much more in the last couple years with women who are going through divorces and women who are widowed. And I think that is really great to see how smart they're getting.
Well, I know I've met a couple of those clients, and
Yes.
I know you add tremendous value.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, Lynn, we have to wrap. This is the fastest half hour in TV, but it's been great to have you. I'm so glad you finally were able to make it on as my guest on Live Better Longer.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate it.
So, this is Bill Borton, Live Better Longer. I'll be back next Tuesday at 11 on RVN TV. Don't miss it. Thanks again.